So the work we are currently reading with the comrades is the Dialectics of the Abstract and the Concrete in Marx's Capital, another work by Evald Ilyenkov, which I'm really, really excited about. And I've already actually shared a few things from this book with you all a few months ago when I was talking about the abstract and the concrete. And there are a couple of insights that I wanted to add on to those few videos. So the abstract and the concrete is, of course, the categories that many people nowadays do not quite understand, because we're not taught this, right? Nobody cares if we understand philosophy. Nobody cares if we understand humanities. Nobody cares if we understand the world and capitalism. But the abstract and the concrete, if you're not sure what these are, check out some of my older videos from 3-4 months ago or so, or ask me in the comments. So the abstractions that are necessary in order to gain some kind of a perception, some kind of conceptualization is something that comes later, and I keep forgetting the terms in English because I'm reading it in Russian. So, but it's ставление, which is representation. That's the word. So first, when you do the action of getting the abstraction, abstradize, whatever you want to call this, this is your representation. This is your one-sided view of the world or the phenomena. Usually, it's the object or the phenomena, and then you may or may not take it deeper, wider, in all the different directions the dialectical spiral takes you on. And then you may arrive at a conceptualization or a concept. And this is when your knowledge will actually be concrete. So any kind of an object that you perceive just through your senses, you do not see the concrete object yet. What you see is a dimension, a side of the object, and in order to gain a concrete understanding of this object, a concrete conceptualization of this object, you have to study it very thoroughly, and you have to understand the essence of its becoming. This is what the differences between the abstract and the concrete are. This is dialectical philosophy, by the way. This is not formal logic or mainstream philosophy like neo-positivism and the likes. In there, Ilyenkov actually goes to great length to discuss various definitions that all kinds of neo-positivist contemporaries of his were suggesting, and he showcases how they actually stumble and they contradict themselves in their own definitions of the abstract and the concrete, of the representation and conceptualization, etc., etc. So the reason why you need to know and understand this is, even if you don't want to organize these concepts, understanding these concepts, these categories can vastly improve your personal life, because you have to study yourself, you have to study the people in your life, the phenomena in your life concretely in order to actually change them, because you cannot just change things willy-nilly. Just like I keep on insisting in every single video, you have to first understand the logic of its becoming. You have to see how this object is the way it is, because otherwise you're not going to be able to meaningfully change it. You may change it superficially, you may change it randomly, so you're giving pure chance a chance. You are just letting luck guide your way if you're not studying the object concretely, if you're not looking into the matter concretely, dialectically. This is why some modern scientists sometimes arrive at dialectical conclusions without even knowing what dialectics are, because they are actually following that ascension from the concrete to the abstract and the other way around, from the abstract to the concrete. Well, it is the abstraction that you first see and observe. You see a concrete, in your opinion, object, but it is actually abstract because you only see a side of it. Even if you look at it from all sides, you lick it, you smell it, you do whatever, you're still only seeing this outer shell of that object. Because many objects have more than just the outer shell. Many objects actually have something within them that makes them what they are. So you have to understand it. You don't have to take it apart. It can be phenomena. It can be personal relationships, etc., etc. So when you start looking for contradictions, and I do have a video on the first step you can take in order to spot a contradiction or find a contradiction, and I will probably make more videos about how to find a contradiction, because this is crucial. This is very important information for everyone. If you want to understand yourself, if you want to understand relationships, if you want to understand geopolitics, the world around you, you need to understand how to find a contradiction, because very often we see contradictions as if Everything is ruled by formal logic. It is black versus white. It is false dichotomies. Contradictions are actually the two interconnected, intercausal sides of the same process. It is not just opposites, okay? So the contradiction of capital, the main contradiction of capitalism is public production, private consumption, or private distribution, or call it what you will. So all of this is part of the same process, and you cannot just change a part of it and expect the entire thing to change. You have to get to know every single stage of its becoming to see that at the core of the capitalist production is a commodity. This is the essence of capitalist production. If you do not get rid of commodification of life itself, of everything that surrounds us, then you're not going to be able to overcome capitalism. And it is not done quickly. It is not done overnight. It is not done over a few generations, even, just as we were able to kind of prove or experiment upon, rather, in the USSR. And this is why the entire humanity will have to, at least most of the humanity, will have to participate in various socialist projects in order to come up with ways of decommodifying production so that we all engage with each other, relate to each other differently. But I digress. The looking for a contradictions part is crucial in your interpersonal relationships, in your getting to know yourself. And what I find very helpful is using verbs. We love using states of being. In many, many languages, there are lots of words that describe states of being, and we're so used to associating with the states of being. When we say, I am cold, right? This is something that is happening to my body. This is the state of being that I'm experiencing. So experiencing the verb is going to be more helpful to us rather than looking at it as a static phenomenon, because cold doesn't just happen, right? There is a process of how cold gets to your body. And it happens with every single experience that we have, with every single action, with every single state of being. If we start looking at it from a perspective of a verb, what is being done to us, or what are we doing onto others, objects or people or anything that you will, what is the action? So the action is the process. And this is when you will be able to spot the contradictions much more easily. This is why practice actually allows you to understand the theory. And this is why I never, ever advocate for theory only. Sometimes people misunderstand. They think the only thing I'm interested in is understanding theory. And that is not the case, because you cannot understand theory without engaging with that theory in real life. And engaging in the theory in real life doesn't mean that you learn the theory, then you go off and change the world. This is a very simplistic way of looking at it. You begin embodying whatever it is you are consuming through literature, through theory. You change your behavior. You change the way you relate to other beings and things around you. You become a different person because of the theory that you engage with. And this is how you create this process of the theory becoming practice. And it will eventually probably become dramatic. It will become such a dramatic change that when you look at your own pictures or your own recordings of yourself 10 years prior, you'll be like, oh, wow, this is a totally different person. I don't know who this person is, because you have gone through that whole process of becoming somebody else, somebody who is embodying maybe certain values or certain practices, etc., etc. And this is the final product now, but it is not final. It is only for this moment. So the whole history of everything consists of all of these moments that are always connected to each other. And there are millions, billions of connections. We don't have to understand every single one of these connections in order to understand the principles of dialectics. The principles of dialectics points us towards the unity and struggle of the opposites, which is looking for a contradiction. Just as in capitalism, we find the key contradiction between the actors of the productive processes, such as the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. Call it what you will, working class people versus people who own the means of production. This is the core contradiction, because without these two components, capitalism wouldn't exist. Yes, the workers would exist without the capitalists, but they will be in a different form. They will not be the exploited proletariat. They will not be the workers who are alienated from the fruits of their labor. They will be a worker just like the previous version of you 10 years ago. They will be in a different state of being. But before that, there's got to be a process, right? And this is what you can also do to pretty much anything. So what I've been thinking about lately is how the vast majority of personal contradictions is not you versus someone else or even something else. Of course, we're all under the yoke of capitalism. We're all suffering all kinds of different struggles. So the material conditions, the objective reality causes our suffering. I'm not arguing with that. But very often it manifests in the ways we treat ourselves and we relate to ourselves as human beings, because we are so used to dehumanization that is happening in the capitalist production, which we must participate in order to live. We embody that. We start embodying this unconsciously, unwillingly. We start embodying this and we treat ourselves as if we are commodities too. So we devalue ourselves, we dehumanize ourselves, we feel bad about being lazy, being not very productive, not being very successful, not being pretty enough, not being this and that enough, etc., etc., etc. So all of these are a direct consequence of capitalist production. All of this. So obviously this is my favorite song. The ideology, the capitalist ideology is everywhere, is in everything. Every single thought that you have is because of capitalist ideology. But it is just what it is, because the ideal is formed reflecting the material conditions. It is another process that I spent quite some time explaining in the past couple of months when we were reading The Dialectics of the Ideal by Evelyn Lenkov. But once you start seeing that oftentimes in your own personal struggles, it is not you versus the outside, it is you versus yourself. And you can overcome that much more easily than we can all collectively overcome capitalism. And then once you overcome this inner contradiction, at least to an extent, because again, it's a process, then you can unite with other people much more successfully, organize and connect with other people much more successfully, because you will not be carrying even more of that suffering, this psycho-emotional suffering. So what I'm suggesting is you see the kind of contradictions you may embody in yourself, because a lot of those flaws that we often perceive in ourselves or others, these are the flaws that are perceived by us because we're looking at ourselves through the lens of capitalist production. It is not our fault. We're not bad people because of this. We're not worthless people because of this. It is something that can be consciously changed slowly over time with the help of other people. Collective grieving, collective practices of becoming are very, very helpful. But unfortunately, they're very, very inaccessible to the vast majority of us. So we have to make do. We have to help ourselves the best way we can so that we can be helpful to others. We can be helpful to the movement, to the bigger movement of the liberation of the entire humanity in the world. So I will be making more videos talking about this. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope you have a great day today. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first. Subscribe to me on all the other social media accounts, even though I don't do much there. And I'll talk to you sometime later.